So this project is presented by Sahil, Darshan, Danish, Mahesh, Siddesh, Ashutosh, Adnan, Saad and Jawad. So our topic name is types, objects and namespace. So the first topic is classes. So when you are starting out as a developer, classes are one of the first concepts you come across. So technically, classes are the core definitions for the objects. The one thing about the classes is that you can create many objects with the classes. For example, you might have a class that represented as a file. So which can be created into some, which can be used to read some data. So we can access multiple XML files. So you can create several datas as shown in the figure. So we can see in the figure that the XML file can create many files or file objects and which can be used to see in the data. So the class can interact with each other with the help of the three ingredients, which are the main parts. So the first one is properties. So the properties allows us to access an object data. So some properties are used for read-only purpose, not for write access. So they cannot be modified. So they cannot be changed. For example, in previous chapter we can see that the read only length property of a string of object can find only the numbers. For example, we can find only the number of a length of a string only, but not the object. The second one is the method. So method allows you to perform an action of an object. So this is the purpose of the method. Unlike properties, methods are used for actions that perform a distinct task only, not like other objects. For example, to open a database, you might have to write a command open method in a connection objects. The next one is the event provides notification that something has happened during the code. If you ever open a Windows application, you can see how controls can fire and are used to trigger your code. So for example, if a user clicks on a button, the button object fires a click event, so which your code can, so the code react to it. So the same pattern works to the all the web controls in an ASP.NET web page. So like classes, so we across the classes. Classes behave like a black box, which means that when you create an object, you shouldn't waste any time wondering how it is work, what is the information using it. So this is the purpose of the classes. So the next one is static members. So one of the tricks about the ESP.NET is that when you you really they can be used in the two ways. So you can use some class members without creating any object, and these are called static members. So without creating an objects are called static members, and they can be accessed by any class name. For example, the datetime type provides a static property name now. So for example, you can use the add days method or the r property without any valid objects. So you can see the following code. Snippets are static and instant members. So you can see the code. So datetime any date is equal to datetime now. So these are how we can write the static members. So this command is used for it is used to show the instant of any method in a day. So the following code makes no sense because it is try to use the instant method any days with the help of the class name. So this was the example. So both the properties and methods can be designed as a static member. So static properties and methods are of net frameworks. The next example, which introduce a basic class, can be used for only in instant members only. So the next level of education. This is the example of a. So to create a simple class. So to create a simple class, you have to define a special block structure. So like public class, my class. So we can write the class code here. So you can define any classes or as you need in the file here. So classes exist in many forms, so they can be represented in many types. So for doing such purposes, classes should be represented and breaking down your code into a group of integrated classes as a part of a programming. So the next, Chalu was this.
My topic is building a building a base class. After you have defined a class, the first step is to add some basic data. The next example defines three member variable that store information about the product, namely its name, its price, and its URL that point to an image file. Public class product bracket private string name, private decimal price, private string image URL. A local variable exists only until the current method ends. On the other hand, a member variable is declared as a part of class. It's available to all the method in the class, and it leaves as long as the containing object leaves. When you create a member variable, you set its accessibility. The accessibility determines whether other part of your code will be able to read and alert this variable. For example, if a class A contain a private variable, the code in class B will not be able to read or modify it. Only the code in class A will have the ability. On the other hand, if object A has a public variable, any other any other object in your application is free to read and alert the information in content. Local variable do not support any accessibilities keyword because they can never be made available to any code beyond the current procedure. Generally, in all the simple ASP.NET application, most of your variable will be private because the majority of your code will be self-contained in a single web page class. As you start creating separate component to rescue functionality, however, accessibility become much more important.
Hello, myself Mahesh. Now I'm going to explain value type and reference type. The value type of C# can be grouped into two categories, named as user-defined type and predefined type. User-defined type, also called as complex type, and predefined type is also called as simple type. User-defined type is nothing but we can define our own complex, and it includes struct type and enumerations, and predefined value type, which are also known as simple type or primitive type. And these are further subdivided into three types, that is numeric type, boolean type, and character type. Value type versus reference type. Value types are always stored on stack. Example, int a is equals to 10. Value types are fixed length. When value is assigned to another variable, the value is actually copied. That is, two identical copies of value are available in memory. Garbage collector cannot access stack memory. Example, predefined data type, that is structure and enumeration. Reference type stored on heap. Example, object obj2 is equals to obj1. Obj1 can be stored in obj2. Reference types are variable length. When assigned between two reference variable occurs, only the reference is copied. This means there are two references available to single value. And in reference type, garbage collector can access heap memory. Example, classes, object interface, and delegates.
Here I am going to explain understanding namespaces. Whether you realize it or first, every piece of code.NET exists inside a .NET type. That is a typical class. In turn, every type exists inside a namespace. Shows this arrangement for your own code and the data type class. That is, in an extreme simplification, the system namespace alone is stocks with several hundred classes. Namespace can organize all different types into. Without namespace, these tabs would all be grouped into a single long and messy list. This sort of organization is practical for small set of information, but it would be impractical for the thousands of tabs. For example, in the chapters of web controls, you have learned how to use the objects in the system.web UI namespaces. In the character about web service, you will study the types in system.web service namespaces. For database, you will turn to system data namespace. In fact, we have already learned a little about namespace, the basic system namespace that contain all the data types. Often, when you write apps.NET code, you will just use the namespace that Visual Studio creates the automatically. If, however, you want to organize your code into multiple namespace, you can define the namespace by using a simple block structure as shown here. Namespace.myCompany. साथ नीचे लेना public my app, namespace my app, public class product. Code goes here. In preceding example, the product class is the namespace. My company dot my app dot code inside the namespace can access the product class by name. The code outside it is used to fully qualified name dot admin. My company dot my app dot product. This ensures that you can use the components from various third-party developers without worrying about name collisions. If those developers follow the recommended naming standard, the classes will always be in a namespace that uses the name of the company and software product. The fully qualified name of the classes will almost certainly be unique. Namespace.mycompany.my app public class product. The codes goes here. You can declare the namespace in various code files. In fact, more than one project can even use the same namespace. Namespaces are really nothing more than a convenient logic container that helps you organize your classes. Importing namespace. Having two type long fully qualified names is certain to tire your fingers and create over verbose code. To tighten code up, it's standard and practice to import the namespace you want to use. After you have imported a namespace, you don't need to type fully qualified name for any type of its contents. Instead, you can use the type of namespace as to they were defined locally. To import a namespace, you use the using statement. This statement must appear as the first line in your code files outside of any namespace or block structures.
So my topic name is assemblies. So I am going to explain why it is used and what name we have given to assembly and when we can use assemblies and what's the purpose behind using assemblies. Generally, assembly are are a logical way to a group class. It is a package of distributing code. In the first paragraph, we have seen that where we can find assemblies. Assemblies are found in the net framework in folder C Windows assembly. Technically, the assemblies are in the subdirectories of the C Windows assemblies folder. This is the where we can find assemblies. Assemblies, the strict relation does not exist between assemblies and namespace, and assemblies can contain multiple spaces. Conversely, one assembly file can contain classes in the same namespace. Technically, namespaces are a logical way to a group class. Mm, Assemblies, however, are a physical package for distributing
Chal babu, bye.
code. The net classes are actually contained in a number of assemblies. For example, the basic types in the system namespace comes from the Boddul assembly. Many ASP.NET types um, are found in the system. DIL assembly. In addition, you might want to use other. For example, you will find the namespace web in the assembly file system web.dll. Mm, Namespace requirement when compiling an application, you need the language what the assemblies the application uses by. Namespace additional namespace can be made available by using ASP.NET application. If you will need to define them configuration file for your website, which makes the Visual Studio, which makes the process seamlessly, letting you add assembly references to the configuration file by using the website. Thank you.
So now, so now I will explain about inheritance. So inheritance is one of the feature of object-oriented programming. In this process one object acquires all the properties of the parent class. Class is called as inheritance. In this, we have two classes called the derived class and the base class. The derived class is the one which derives all the properties of one class, and base class is the one from which all the properties have been derived. So what the main advantage of using inheritance in our code is code reusability. Here, as we know that the code is repeated, so we only define the code once and repeat it again and again whenever we need. So less code is required in the class. There are many types of inheritance. Some One is a single inheritance, hierarchical inheritance, multi-level inheritance, and we also have a multiple inheritance. In single inheritance, only one base class and one derived class is there, where one derived class inherits feature from only one base class. In hierarchical inheritance, the base class is the same from which many classes are inherited. Then we have a multi-level inheritance where one base class is when we have where we have one base class from which another classes are derived. Multiple inheritance is generally not used here. We If we want to use, we use the interface class, then we can use it. So the main thing that we have to note here is that multiple inheritance is not supported by C sharp through classes, but we can use it through interface. And if we don't want to inherit any sort of class, then we can use the sealed keyword. Now Danish will explain the next part.
So my topic is event. First let us know what is an event. An event is basically a notification which is sent by the object to indicate the occurrence of the action. The class which raise event is called the publisher, where the class which receive the notification is called the subscriber. The publisher typically raise an event when someone action occurred, and the subscriber who are interested in getting notification when an action occurred should first register with that event and handle it. In a C sharp event in encapsulate delegate and it's dependent in the delegate. Delegate is a signature of event handler method of subscriber class. Declaring an event can be declared in two steps: declaring a delegate, declaring a variable of the delegate with an event keyword. Example of declaring an image. In the above example, we declare a delegate notify and then declaring an event process completely of delegate type, or notifying using event keyword in the process business logic class. The process business logical class is called the publisher, while the notification declares specific the signature of the process complete event handler. It specifies that the event handler method in the subscriber class must have a void return type and no parameter. A further part will be explained by Jawad and Ashutosh.
My topic name is exception handling. Exception means error near condition. Uh, Exception is a program that arises during the execution of a program. A exception is a response to an exceptional circumstance that arises while a program is running. Such is an attempt to divide by zero. Whenever program runs, their process the different reason for which expression or an error can be come for play. So expression mentioned there is division by zero. Exception provide a way to transfer control from one part of program to another. Exception handling is built upon four keywords: try, catch, finally, and throw. So now let us discuss individually. Try block and identify the block of code for which particular exception is activated. It is followed by one or more catch blocks. So always remember, try blocks is followed by catch blocks. Then second is a catch. A program catches an execution which is exception handler at the place in a program where you want to handle the program. The catch keywords indicates the catching of an exception.
Finally block is used to execute a given set of statements, whether exception is thrown or not thrown. For example, if you open a file, it must be closed whether exception is raised or not. Throw is a program exception where when a problem shows up, this is done using a throw keyword. Syntax. So assuming a block raises an exception, a method catches an exception using a combination of try and catch keywords. A try catch block is placed around the code that might generate an exception code. Within a try catch block is referred to a protected code, and the syntax for using try catch looks like the following. So here is a try block. Here curly bracket indicates beginning and ends. There is known as code. Whatever written under it is known as handling code. Handling code is which is written under the try blocks, and each and every try block must be followed by catch blocks. Then he written as a name file name is exception name e1 and respected remedy action, and its second one is exception name e1 e2. After this explained by Ashutosh.
So my today's topic is exception classes in C. Exception classes. Exception classes, C sharp exceptions are represented by classes. The exception classes in C sharp are mainly directly or indirectly derived by system exception classes. Some of the exceptions are derived directly or indirectly. System exception classes are derived directly or indirectly. The system exception classes are the system application exception and exception classes. The system application exception class support exception generated by application program, and the exceptions defined by the program should derive from the class. And the system exception class is basic class for all predefined system exceptions. So the application exception class is defined by programmers used to derive from the class, and it is an exception system exception. It is predefined by system exceptions. The following table provides a predefined exception class derived from system exception classes. It contains various types, system classes, and then the description. First, system IO exceptions, which handles internal input and output errors. System.index out of range exceptions handles errors generated when a method refers to an array index out of range. When the arrays are out of range, so it is used. A system.array type mismatch exception handles errors generated when this type of mismatch with the array type. When the arrays are mismatched, so this is used. System.null reference exception handles errors generated from referencing a null object when the value is null. System.divide by zero exception handles zero generated from dividing a dividend with zero. Dividing dividend by zero, not is the original number. System.invalid cast exception handles errors generated during typecasting. System.out of memory exception handles errors generated from the insufficient free memory. Where memory is not free, we get this. System.stack overflow exception where generated while stack is overflowed. Handling exception. Handling exception. C# structured solution to the exception handling in the form try and catch block. Using the block, the core program statements are separated from the error handling statement. The error handling blocks are implemented using the try, catch, and finally keywords. Following is an example of throwing an exception. When we see try in this by dividing finally exception when dividing by zero condition occurs. So zero condition occurs. When the above code is produced the following result. Creating user-defined exceptions. You can also define your own exceptions. Sorry, the output here of the above code. Exception calls the system divide at the rate zero exceptions. You can also define your own exceptions. User-defined exception classes are derived from the exception classes. The following example demonstrates it. So when this above code is totally executed, the output is as shown in the small box above the throwing object title. You can throw an object if it is either directly or indirectly derived from the system.exception classes. You can throw directly if they are directly or indirectly derived from the system.exception classes. You can throw a statement in the catch block to throw the present object. The example is in this code catch the bracket dot exception and dot dot throw in. Thank you.